While casting my net into the sea, I expected nothing more than the usual catch. But when I pulled it back, something extraordinary shimmered inside, a treasure so rare, it felt like the ocean itself had gifted me a secret of unimaginable value. My name is Daniel, a simple fisherman who spent his life in the quiet rhythm of the tides. Each morning, I rose before the sun, pushed my small wooden boat into the restless waters, and trusted the sea to give me enough to survive another day. The sea was not just my workplace, it was my companion, my teacher, and often my tormentor. Its waves had carried away my hopes as often as they had fed my family. I had long accepted that my destiny was tied to the ordinary, to the endless cycle of casting, waiting, and hauling in nets that smelled of salt and disappointment. That morning, however, something was different. The air was unusually still, the horizon painted with a kind of gold that seemed too perfect, as if the heavens had lowered a curtain of light upon the water. My net sank into the depths, vanishing into that mysterious world beneath. I leaned on the side of my boat, waiting with the patience only years of hardship can teach. Then came a tug, heavy, resistant, as if the sea was holding on to whatever I had caught. I pulled, muscles straining against the stubborn weight. At first, I thought it was a rock or perhaps a net tangled with seaweed. But as it broke the surface, the sunlight struck against something that gleamed like fire under water. For a moment I froze. The net dripped with seawater, but nestled inside was not fish, not crabs, not the dull shapes I had seen 1,000 times before. It was something else. Something alive with brilliance. My heart pounded as I dragged it into the boat. I knelt, my hands trembling, unsure if I should touch it. It looked like a chest, not large, but old, its surface carved with patterns I could not understand. Seashells clung to its edges, and barnacles had claimed parts of it, but beneath that crust of time was a glow, faint, golden, as if the chest itself was breathing light. I sat there, staring, forgetting the waves, forgetting even to breathe. The sea around me seemed to fall silent, as though it too was waiting for me to act. The chest was locked, its latch rusted and stubborn, but every fiber of me screamed that what lay inside was not meant for ordinary eyes. For years, I had prayed for a miracle. Poverty had chained me to a life where each day was a battle for survival. Yet here, in my small wooden boat, sat something that could shatter those chains forever. I did not know what it contained, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty. It was no ordinary object. It was a secret the sea had kept hidden, perhaps for centuries, and for some reason, it had chosen me. I placed my hands on the chest, feeling the roughness of its surface, the cool dampness of the salt that clung to it. My pulse quickened. Every story I had ever heard about treasures buried in the sea came rushing back. The whispers of lost ships, ancient kingdoms, fortunes swallowed by storms. Could it be that one of those legends had drifted into my net? The weight of it felt unnatural, not just heavy with metal or wood, but with history itself. The more I looked, the more convinced I became that this discovery would change everything, my life, my destiny, perhaps even my soul. But with that realization came fear. For treasures are not gifts, they are tests. The sea never gives without asking something in return. As I sat alone in that fragile boat, the horizon stretching endlessly around me, I wondered if I had awakened something that was never meant to be disturbed. The chest remained sealed, defying my attempts to pry it open. Yet even unopened, it radiated a presence that unsettled me. It was as though the ocean had not just offered me wealth but burdened me with a choice. Do I take it back to shore and face the questions, the greed, the dangers it would bring? Or do I cast it back into the water, pretending I never saw it, living the rest of my days haunted by the knowledge that I once held destiny in my hands? The waves lapped against the boat, whispering answers I could not understand. The gulls circled above, their cries sharp and insistent, as if urging me to decide. I tightened my grip on the chest. No matter the risks, no matter the consequences, I knew I could not return it to the sea. My life had been nothing but hunger and longing. This was my chance to break free. If fate had chosen me to carry this burden, then I would bear it, even if it meant stepping into a world of shadows I could not yet imagine. With that thought, I turned my boat toward the shore. The sun was climbing higher, and its reflection on the water made the chest glow even brighter. My hands were still shaking, but a strange fire had awakened within me, a mixture of fear, hope, and an unshakable certainty that life would never again be the same. And as the coastline appeared in the distance, I realized that this was only the beginning. For inside that chest, hidden beneath layers of salt, rust, and time, was a secret powerful enough to rewrite my destiny. And when I finally opened it, the world I thought I knew would vanish forever. The boat glided across the waters, each stroke of the oar pushing me closer to the shore, yet farther from the life I had always known. The chest sat heavy in the center of the boat, and though it was no larger than a fisherman's basket, its presence filled every corner of the vessel. I kept glancing at it, half afraid it might vanish back into the sea, half afraid it might awaken into something I could not control. The sun rose higher, and the surface of the water shimmered like scattered coins of light. Normally, such beauty would have eased my weary heart. But that day, the sea felt different. The waves did not carry the playful rhythm I had known since childhood. They moved with a slow, deliberate weight, as if they too understood what I was carrying. By the time my boat touched the sand, my arms ached from rowing, but the real burden lay in my chest, a storm of questions with no answers. I pulled the boat ashore, careful to shield the strange chest from the eyes of anyone who might pass. My village was simple, a cluster of huts where life flowed like the tide, predictable, unchanging. If I carried the chest through those sandy paths, whispers would rise like smoke, and soon every pair of eyes would follow me with hunger. So instead, I dragged it toward the small shack I called home, hidden at the edge of the village near a grove of palms. My hands burned from the effort. Every step made me more aware of its unnatural weight, as though I was not moving wood and metal, but something far more ancient. By the time I reached my doorway, sweat drenched my brow and my breath came in ragged gasps. I set the chest down in the dim light of my hut. The silence inside was suffocating. I could hear only the pounding of my own heart and the faint crackle of the sea breeze slipping through the thatched walls. My hands hovered above the latch, hesitant, trembling. Part of me wanted to open it immediately, to rip away the mystery and seize whatever destiny it promised. But another part of me held back, whispering caution. I lit a small oil lamp, its flickering flame casting long shadows across the chest. The carvings on its surface seemed to shift in the moving light, strange patterns I could not recognize, spirals, waves, symbols like eyes that stared back at me. The lock, though rusted, looked unyielding, as if forged for eternity. I pressed against it, but it did not budge. Frustration gnawed at me, yet beneath it was something deeper, a sense of reverence. This was not just an object to be forced open. It was as if the chest demanded patience, respect, maybe even sacrifice. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, every sound outside magnified by my restless thoughts. The whisper of the palms, the distant call of the sea, even the creak of my hut seemed to carry the same question: what will you do with what you have found? Sleep eluded me, and when dawn broke again, I felt the weight of sleeplessness as much as I felt the weight of the chest itself. I decided I could not stay in the village with it. Eyes would notice, rumors would grow, and soon the chest would no longer be mine to keep. So, under the cloak of early morning, I wrapped it in old fishing nets and carried it deeper inland, toward the rocky cliffs where the forest began. Few ventured there, for the paths were steep and the air thick with silence. If I was to unlock the chest's secrets, it had to be away from curious stares. The climb was brutal. My arms screamed under the strain, my legs shook, but I pressed on. Each step felt like a test, as though the treasure itself was demanding proof of my will. When I finally reached a secluded hollow among the rocks, I collapsed, chest heaving, the chest beside me like a slumbering beast. It was here, in the silence of the cliffs, that I decided to attempt again. I took a stone and struck against the lock, sparks flying. The sound echoed against the rocks, startling birds from the trees. But the lock did not yield. Again and again I struck, my hands blistered, my breath ragged, but the chest remained sealed, as if mocking my efforts. Exhaustion forced me to stop. I sat back, defeated, staring at the unbroken chest. Anger surged within me, anger at the sea, at fate, at myself for daring to believe I had been chosen for something greater. Yet beneath the anger, a strange calm settled. Perhaps it was not meant to be opened by force. Perhaps it required time, or understanding. I leaned against the rocks, the sound of the waves faint in the distance, and allowed myself to breathe. My body ached, but my spirit burned. The chest had not revealed its secrets, but it had already changed me. No longer did I feel like the poor fisherman bound to the tides. I felt like a man standing on the edge of something vast and unknown. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in crimson and gold, I noticed something strange. The carvings on the chest glimmered faintly, as if the dying light had awakened them. The spirals seemed to move, the symbols seemed to glow, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I heard a sound, a low hum, deep and resonant, like the breath of the sea itself. My skin prickled. I reached out, and for the first time, the lock felt warm beneath my fingers. And then, a faint click. The sound was so soft I thought I had imagined it. But when I pulled gently at the latch, it moved. The chest was no longer sealed. My breath caught. My hands trembled. I was one step away from discovering what lay hidden within. And as darkness closed around the cliffs, I knew that when I opened it, my life would be divided into two parts, the years before this moment, and everything that would come after. The twilight deepened around me, shadows stretching long across the rocky hollow where I sat. The chest lay before me, silent yet alive, its carvings faintly glowing as if they drank from the last light of the dying sun. My fingers hovered over the loosened latch, my pulse echoing in my ears like a drum of war. For so long, I had wondered what it might contain: gold, jewels, relics of forgotten kings. Now I was a breath away from the truth. I pulled. The lock gave way with a reluctant groan, the lid creaking as I lifted it. A rush of cold, salt-scented air escaped, as though the chest had held the breath of the ocean itself for centuries. My heart hammered. I leaned closer, expecting to see the glitter of coins or the shimmer of gemstones. But what met my eyes was stranger than anything I could have imagined. Inside, nestled in folds of decayed fabric, lay objects that seemed impossibly old, yet untouched by time. At first, I thought it was nothing more than rusted metal. But as I brushed away the fabric, a brilliance sparked, faint at first, then blazing with a light that made my skin tingle. There were coins, yes, but not like any I had ever seen. They bore no faces of kings, no marks of empire. Instead, they carried intricate symbols, spirals, waves, stars, patterns that seemed to move when I stared at them too long, as though alive. Beside them lay a necklace, its chain impossibly fine, holding a pendant shaped like a drop of water frozen in silver. It glimmered with a faint blue glow, as though it held within it a fragment of the sea itself. I lifted it carefully, and the instant my skin touched the pendant, a chill ran up my arm, sharp and electric. For a moment I thought I heard the echo of waves, not from the shore, but from deep within me. I set it down quickly, breath ragged. My eyes darted back to the chest. Beneath the coins and pendant lay a small scroll, sealed with wax that crumbled at my touch. The parchment was brittle, yet when I unrolled it, the ink glistened as though written yesterday. Lines of symbols sprawled across it, not letters I recognized, but the same patterns etched into the coins and the chest itself. Spirals. Waves. Eyes. The language of the sea. I could not read it, yet I felt it speaking to me. Not with words, but with weight. With meaning. The longer I stared, the more certain I became. This was not mere treasure. It was something greater, something sacred. These were not objects meant for ordinary men to find. They were fragments of a story older than my village, older perhaps than any nation. I sat in silence, the night air cold against my skin, my lamp flickering beside me. The objects glowed faintly in the shadows, their light pulsing like the beat of a heart. I realized then that my discovery was not wealth in the way I had imagined. This was not gold I could sell in the market, not jewels I could trade for comfort. This was something different. It was knowledge. The sea had not given me riches. It had given me a secret. And secrets are far more dangerous than gold. As the thought struck me, unease crept into my chest. I looked around the hollow, half expecting eyes to watch me from the darkness. For what treasure exists without those who seek it? If the sea had hidden this chest for so long, then perhaps others had once searched for it, and perhaps some still were. The night deepened, and the stars wheeled slowly above. I forced myself to close the chest, though my hands lingered on the pendant, on the coins, on the scroll that pulsed with mystery. The lid shut with a sound that echoed through the rocks, and I wrapped it once more in my nets, hiding its glow. Yet I knew that nothing could hide it truly. Not from me. Not from the world. Sleep refused to come. I lay against the cold stone, my body exhausted but my mind burning. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the spirals turning, the symbols shifting, the pendant glowing. I felt as though I had been chosen, pulled from the tide of ordinary men and thrust into a current far stronger than myself. When dawn finally broke, painting the sky in soft gold, I rose with heavy limbs. The chest was still there, silent, patient. I stared at it, torn between awe and fear. What was I to do? Take it back to the village and risk it being stolen, fought over, destroyed? Or guard it in secret, a lonely keeper of a truth I could not yet understand? The sea crashed far below, its endless roar carrying both promise and warning. My life as a fisherman seemed suddenly small, distant, almost dreamlike. The net I had cast into the waters had not brought me fish. It had brought me destiny. I knew then that I could not return to my old life. The chest had bound itself to me, and I to it. To abandon it would be to abandon myself. Whatever path lay ahead, it would be carved not by the nets of a fisherman, but by the secrets of the sea. I gathered my strength, lifting the chest once more. It was lighter now, though I could not say why. Perhaps because I no longer carried it with doubt, but with purpose. I descended the cliffs, each step steady, each breath measured. Yet as I reached the edge of the forest, a sound froze me in my tracks. It was faint at first, carried on the morning wind, the distant creak of wood, the splash of oars cutting through water. I turned toward the sea. Out beyond the horizon, a dark shape was moving, a boat unlike any from my village. Its sails were tattered, its hull scarred, but it moved with intent, cutting through the waves straight toward the shore. And in that moment I understood, I was not the only one the sea had whispered to. The sight of that boat froze me where I stood. The morning sun painted its sails in shades of crimson and shadow, and even from the cliffs I could sense its presence was not ordinary. My village's fishing boats were small, humble things, patched together with love and desperation. This one was different, longer, darker, its prow carved into a shape I could not make out from the distance. It glided across the water with an unsettling grace, like a predator moving silently toward its prey. I pressed the chest closer to my body, my breath sharp and shallow. The hollow of the cliffs had felt like safety, but now I realized safety no longer existed. The sea had chosen me, yes, but it had also marked me. And whatever lay within that chest was not a secret I alone had stumbled upon. Others knew. Others had always known. The boat grew larger as it neared the shore, its hull slicing through the waves with an eerie stillness. I could almost imagine the eyes of those aboard fixed upon me, though I was hidden in the trees. A chill washed over me, colder than the dawn breeze. Whoever they were, they had come for the same reason I now carried in my arms. I turned away, forcing myself into the forest. The trees closed around me, their shadows long, their silence broken only by the pounding of my own footsteps. The chest was heavy again, each step a struggle. The ground sloped unevenly, roots snagging at my ankles, but I pressed on, driven by fear and something else, resolve. For every treasure there are watchers. Keepers. Those who live and die to guard its secrets. I began to understand then that what I had drawn from the sea was not mine alone. It was part of a story far greater, one that stretched across generations. The chest had survived storms, shipwrecks, and time itself. Perhaps it had always been pursued, always been hunted. And now I was the one carrying its burden forward. The forest deepened, the air thick with damp earth and the distant cry of unseen birds. My hut, my village, my old life, they felt a world away, unreachable now. Each step seemed to pull me farther from the man I had been, the fisherman who lived by tides and nets. That man had died the moment the chest broke the surface of the water. Hours passed. The boat would have reached shore by now. I could almost feel the presence of men moving through the village, asking questions, spreading fear. Perhaps even now they searched the huts, prying into corners, seeking me. My people would not know how to answer. They would not understand what I had found. And in truth, neither did I. At last, I stumbled into a clearing. A small spring bubbled between the rocks, its water clear and cold. I dropped the chest beside it, and collapsed to my knees, drinking deeply, the chill of the water cutting through my exhaustion. For a brief moment, the world was silent again. But silence is never complete. As I sat there, the pendant inside the chest seemed to stir. Even though the lid was closed, I felt its pulse. That faint, steady glow, alive, insistent. It was as if it knew danger was near, as if it was calling out, not to me, but to others. The thought sent a shiver through me. Was the chest a gift? Or was it a beacon? The carvings swam in my mind, the spirals, the waves, the eyes that seemed to follow me. I remembered the scroll, its strange symbols that whispered of knowledge I could not yet grasp. I thought of the coins that shimmered like stars lost in the deep. Nothing about them felt accidental. They were parts of something larger, fragments of a puzzle meant to be solved only by those who understood. And I did not understand. The sun slipped lower, shadows thickening. I dared not light a fire, for fear of revealing my place. My body begged for rest, but my mind refused. I could not stay still. If those men had landed on shore, they would not stop until they found what they sought. And I knew with a terrible certainty that they were not the kind who asked politely. As darkness gathered, I lifted the chest once more. My path was uncertain, but my steps carried me deeper into the forest, away from the sea. The ocean had given me this burden, but I sensed now that the answers I sought lay not in the water, but beyond, hidden in the bones of the land. Night fell. The forest grew alive with whispers, the rustle of leaves, the snap of twigs, the distant call of unseen creatures. My every step felt watched, my every breath measured. I pressed on, guided only by instinct, until at last I reached a ridge. From there, I could see my village in the distance, lanterns flickering like stars fallen to the earth. And then I saw them. Figures moving through the narrow paths. Shadows not belonging to villagers. They carried torches, their movements sharp, their presence foreign. The dark boat had emptied its secrets onto the shore, and now they stalked the land, searching. A wave of dread washed through me. The chest pulsed in my arms, the pendant within glowing faintly as though answering their presence. I crouched low, hidden by the ridge, my breath caught in my throat. It was no longer a question of if they would find me. It was only a matter of when. The ridge felt like a knife's edge beneath my feet, every stone threatening to give way, every shadow a reminder that I was being hunted. The figures below moved with purpose, their torches cutting golden wounds into the night. I watched them from above, hidden among the branches and rocks, my breath shallow and careful. The chest pulsed in my arms, its weight almost unbearable now, as if it sensed the nearness of danger. I could see their faces when the torches lifted high enough, hard, weathered men, their eyes sharp with hunger. They were not villagers, nor simple travelers. These were men who had followed whispers, who had sailed storms for secrets buried beneath waves. The chest was not the first they had sought, and I doubted it would be the last. I turned away, forcing myself deeper into the forest. The earth was soft beneath my feet, every step muffled, yet the chest groaned softly when it shifted in my arms. I winced at the sound, terrified it might betray me. I pressed forward, weaving through trees, ducking beneath branches, my body aching with exhaustion but driven by something far stronger than fear, the knowledge that if I faltered, the treasure would not only be lost but twisted into hands that would wield it for darkness. The night stretched on. My mind played tricks on me, every rustle of leaves a footstep, every crack of a branch a signal that I had been found. My heart pounded with such force that I feared they could hear it echo through the forest. The pendant inside the chest seemed to glow more fiercely now, a heartbeat of blue light that seeped through the cracks, guiding me yet also threatening to expose me. I stumbled into a ravine, the ground steep and treacherous. My foot slipped, and I slid down the slope, stones tearing at my skin. The chest slammed against my ribs, knocking the air from my lungs. Pain shot through me, but I clung to it desperately, unwilling to let go even as I tumbled. When I finally came to rest at the bottom, dirt in my mouth and blood on my palms, the chest was still in my grasp. But then I heard it. Voices. Faint at first, but growing louder. The men were closer than I had feared. Their torches bobbed through the trees above, their shadows stretching long across the ravine's edge. I pressed myself against the earth, willing myself to become part of it, praying the darkness would shield me. My breath came shallow, my hands trembling as I held the chest tight against me. The voices grew clearer, words I could not fully understand, but their tone carried urgency. They were not wandering blindly, they were following something. Perhaps the glow of the pendant, perhaps the chest itself calling out. Perhaps even me. A flicker of light passed above, a torch swinging as one of them peered into the ravine. My heart seized. For a moment, I was certain his eyes met mine, certain he saw the glimmer of the pendant through the chest's cracks. But the light moved on, swallowed by trees and darkness. I waited, frozen, until the voices faded slightly, moving along the ridge. My chance had come. I forced myself up, my body screaming in protest, and pushed deeper into the ravine, following the sound of water. A stream trickled through the rocks, its voice soft but steady, leading me away from the hunters. I staggered along its path, the forest thickening around me. The night grew colder, the stars hidden behind heavy clouds. Every step felt like it dragged me deeper into a labyrinth with no end. My body was failing, but the chest kept me moving. It was no longer simply an object I carried. It was a fire in my blood, a command I could not disobey. Hours blurred together. My vision swam, exhaustion clawing at me, but the stream finally widened into a small clearing where moonlight touched the earth. There, the chest stirred once more. The glow of the pendant broke through, painting the clearing in ghostly blue light. I set the chest down, gasping for breath. My hands trembled as I touched the lid, remembering the objects within, the scroll I could not read. Perhaps now was the time. Perhaps the treasure itself would reveal its purpose. I reached for it, ready to lift the lid again. But before I could, a sound split the silence. A crack. The unmistakable snap of a branch underfoot. I froze. My blood turned to ice. From the edge of the clearing, a torch flared to life. And then another. Shadows emerged from the darkness, one after another, their faces hard, their eyes burning with intent. They had found me. The clearing filled with light as they advanced, surrounding me in a tightening circle. The chest glowed between us, the pendant pulsing brighter with every step they took, as though it recognized them as much as it recognized me. And in that moment, I understood that the chase was over. But the real struggle, the one for the secret the sea had given me, was only beginning. The clearing blazed with firelight as the men surrounded me, their torches casting jagged shadows that clawed at the trees. Their faces, weathered by sea and storm, glistened with sweat, eyes locked not on me, but on the chest that pulsed with its unearthly glow. I clutched it to my chest, my body trembling, though I could no longer tell if it was from fear or from the raw energy radiating from the treasure itself. For a long moment, the world held its breath. The hunters did not speak, yet their intent was clear. They had followed me across waves and forests for this, not for me, not for blood, but for what I carried. The pendant's light spilled through the cracks of the chest, painting the clearing in a shifting blue shimmer. It was alive, restless, as though it knew the moment had come. I staggered back until the bark of a tree pressed against my spine. My arms tightened around the chest. My mind raced, torn between surrender and defiance. What power did I have against men like these? Yet another voice whispered inside me, the same voice that had guided me since I first pulled the net from the sea. It chose you. Not them. The chest grew heavier in my arms, then lighter, then heavier again, pulsing with a rhythm that matched my heartbeat. My vision blurred. For a terrifying moment, I thought my body would fail me, that I would collapse and the hunters would claim their prize. And then, without warning, the chest opened. The lid lifted as if by unseen hands, the air bursting with a surge of light so fierce the hunters recoiled, shielding their eyes. The glow swept across the clearing, washing over the trees, the rocks, even the earth itself. The pendant floated upward, breaking free from the chest, spinning slowly in the air above us. Its light deepened from pale blue to a fierce, brilliant azure, casting the clearing into a world that felt neither night nor day. The hunters fell to their knees, their torches sputtering in the presence of that light. Their hardened faces cracked with awe and terror. I, too, dropped to the ground, my eyes burning, my heart slamming against my ribs. The pendant's hum filled the clearing, a deep, resonant sound that vibrated through my bones. And then, like a voice carried on the tide, I heard it. Not words, but meaning. A story told without language. The pendant spoke of ships long forgotten, of civilizations that had risen and fallen, of guardians sworn to protect this treasure through ages of storms and silence. It spoke of the sea as a living force, not a body of water, but a memory, a keeper of truth. And in that truth I saw myself. A fisherman, a man of nets and tides, now bound to something eternal. The hunters stretched their hands toward the light, desperation etched in every gesture. But the pendant did not answer them. It hung above us, spinning, its glow intensifying until it felt like the very stars had been drawn into its heart. I realized then that this was not gold to be hoarded, nor jewels to be sold. It was power, and with power came choice. The pendant began to descend, its light narrowing, focusing, until it hovered inches above my chest. My breath caught as it touched my skin, a searing chill that sank into my heart. I gasped, the world spinning, as the light poured into me. My vision filled with waves, with endless horizons, with secrets buried in depths no man had ever touched. I felt the weight of oceans pressing down on me, yet within that weight, a strange freedom bloomed. When the light faded, the pendant was gone. The chest lay empty before me, its carvings dull, lifeless, as though the very soul had left it. But I knew where it had gone. I could feel it burning inside me, a flame that was not fire but water, ancient and unyielding. The hunters stared, their faces twisted with rage and despair. They had come for treasure, but the sea had chosen differently. It had not chosen them. I rose slowly, my legs trembling but unbroken. My gaze met theirs, and though no words passed between us, they understood. The pendant's power was no longer theirs to seek. It lived within me. One by one, their torches dropped into the dirt. Without a word, they retreated into the forest, their shadows melting into the night. The boat that had carried them would sail again, but not with the prize they sought. Silence returned to the clearing, broken only by the whisper of the stream. I stood alone, the empty chest at my feet, my hands shaking as I touched the place where the pendant had entered me. I was still Ibrahim, the fisherman. Yet I was no longer the man I had been. The sea had gifted me not with wealth, but with responsibility. Its secret lived in me now, and with it came a truth I could not ignore. Some treasures are not meant to be owned, but carried. Guarded. Protected. As dawn broke, I carried the empty chest to the edge of the forest. The sky was painted in fire, the waves below roaring their eternal song. With a final breath, I cast the chest back into the sea. It vanished beneath the waves, claimed once more by the depths. But the secret it had carried would remain with me forever. From that day on, I returned to my nets, my boat, my simple life. Yet every time I touched the water, every time I cast my net into the sea, I felt it, a hum beneath the waves, a whisper in the tide, a bond unbroken. I was no longer just a fisherman. I was a keeper of the sea's secret. And though the world might never know what I had found in my net that morning, I knew one truth with absolute certainty. Some treasures are not measured in gold, but in the weight of destiny.